Good morning, second grade friends. Today what we're going to do is we're going to read the Lorax together, and then we have some activities that we're going to do based on the story. If you remember correctly, on your homework choice board, one of your options, since Earth Day is coming up, is to compare the story, the Lorax, to the movie. So today we'll be reading the story together. We'll be completing some activities together, and in order for you to complete that homework portion on your choice board, all you'll have to do is just watch the movie and compare the two. Let's go ahead and get started. I have a copy of the Lorax, however, it is at school. So we will be watching the Lorax together on Teacher Tube. Ready? Before we get started, things we're going to be looking for in this story are two characters that we can compare, cause and effects of problems and solutions, retelling or summarizing the plot of the story, including what the problem is, who the main characters are, why the problems are such a big deal, how the problem is solved, and where the story takes place. And the way that you can summarize a story is by having these components. Someone, who's the main character, wanted, what did they want? But there was a problem, what was it? So, how did the character try to solve the problem? Then, what was the resolution to the problem? And then once you combine those ideas, you have your summary. Let's go ahead and get started now.
At the far end of town, where the grickle grass grows, and the wind smells slow and sour when it blows, and no birds ever sing excepting old crows, is the street of the lifted Lorax. Deep in the grickle grass, some people say, if you look deep enough, you can still see today where the Lorax once stood, just as long as it could, before somebody lifted the Lorax away. What was the Lorax, and why was it there? And why was it lifted and taken somewhere from the far end of town where the grickle grass grows? The old Onceler still lives here. Ask him, he knows. You won't see the Onceler. Don't knock at his door. He stays in his lurkim on top of his store. He lurks in his lurkim, cold under the roof, where he makes his own clothes out of myth-muffed moof. And on special dank midnights in August he peeks out of the shutters, and sometimes he speaks and tells how the Lorax was lifted away. He'll tell you, perhaps, if you're willing to pay. On the end of a rope, he lets down a tin pail, and you have to toss in 15 pence and a nail, and the shell of a great-great-grandfather snail. Then he pulls up the pail, makes the most careful count, to see if you've paid him the proper amount. Then he hides what you paid him away in his snub, his secret strange hole in his grovulous glove. Then he grunts, I will call you by whisper my phone, for the secrets I tell are for your ears alone. Whisper my phone to your ear, and the old Onceler's whispers are not very clear, since they have to come down through a snurgly hose, and he sounds as if he...
Advertisement. Gotta love it. Sorry, guys. What happens when you leave the Lorax at school, when you don't know what to expect. Thanks for hanging in there with me.
Had smallish bees up his nose. Now I'll tell you, he says, with his teeth sounding grey, how Lorax got was still green, the pond was still wet, and the clouds were still clean. The song of the swommy swans rang out. One morning, I came to this glorious place. Saw the trees, the trapula trees, mile after mile in the fresh morning breeze. And under the trees I saw brown barbaloots frisking about in their barbaloot suits as they played in the shade and ate trufula fruits. From the ripulous ponds came the comfortable sound of the humming fish humming while splashing around. But those trufula trees! All my life I'd been searching for trees such as these. The touch of their softer than silk, and they had the sweet smell of fresh butterfly milk. I felt a great leaping of joy in my heart. I knew just what I'd do. I unloaded my cart. In no time at all, I had built a small shop. Then I chopped down a trufula tree with one chop. And I'd finished, I heard a gazump. I looked, I saw something pop out of the tree I chopped down. It was sort of a man. Describe him, that's hard. I don't know if I can. He was shortish and oldish and brownish and mossy, and he spoke with a voice that was sharpish and bossy. Mister, he said with a sawdusty sneeze, I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees, for the trees have no tongues. And I'm asking you, sir, at the top of my lungs. He was very upset as he shouted and puffed. What's that thing you made out of my trufula tuft? Lorax, I said. There's no cause for alarm. I chopped just one tree. I am doing no harm. I'm being quite useful. This thing is a need. A need to find something that all people need. It's a shirt, it's a sock, it's a glove, it's a hat. But it has other uses, yes, far beyond that. You can use it for carpets, for pillows, for sheets, or curtains, or covers for bicycle seats. The Lorax said, sir, you are crazy with greed. There is no one on earth who would buy that sort need. The very next minute, you poor stupid guy. You never can tell what some people will buy. Speak for the trees. I'm busy, I told him. Shut up if you please. I rushed across the room and in no time at all built a radio phone. I put in a quick call. I called all my brothers and uncles and aunts and I said, listen here, here's a wonderful chance for the whole Once family to get mighty rich. Get over here fast. Take the road to North Nitch. To the left at Weehawken, sharp right at South Stitch. And in no time at all, in the factory I built, the whole Once family fled chopping of the trees. Oh, baby, oh, how my business did grow. Now, chopping one tree at a time was too slow, so I quickly invented my super axe which plucked off 4 truffula trees at once. We were making 4 times as fast as before. Lorax, he didn't show up anymore. Next week, he knocked on my new office door. He said, "I'm the Lorax who speaks for the trees, which you seem to be chopping as fast as you please. But I'm also in charge of the brown barbaloots who stayed in the shade in their barbaloot suits, happily lived eating truffula fruits. Now, thanks to your hacking my trees to the ground, there's not enough truffula fruit to go round. And my poor barbaloots are all getting the crummies because they have gas and no food in their tummies. They loved living here, but I can't let them stay. They'll have to find food, and I hope that they may. Good luck, boys," he cried, and he sent them away. I, for once, felt sad as I watched them all go, but business is business, and business must grow, regardless of crummies in tummies, you know. I meant no harm, I most truly did not. But I had to grow bigger, so bigger I got. I figured my roads, I figured my wagons, I figured the loads, the things I shipped out, I was shipping them all to the south, to the east, to the west, to the north. I went right on figuring, selling more feed than I figured my money, which everyone needs. He came back. I was fixing some pipes when that old nuisance Lorax came back with more gripes. "I am the Lorax," he coughed and he whipped. He sneezed and he snuffled. He snarled, he sniffed. "Onceler," he cried with a crapulous croak. "Onceler, you're making such smogulous smoke. My poor swummy swans, why they can't sing a note. No one can sing who has smog in his throat." "And so," said the Lorax, "please pardon my dog. They cannot live here, so I'm sending them off. Where will they go? I don't hopefully know. They may have to fly for a month or a year to escape from the smog you've smogged up around here." "What's more," snapped the Lorax, his dander was up, "let me say a few words about Gluppity Glup. Your machinery chugs on day and night without stop, making also sloppity slop. What do you do with this leftover goo? I'll show you, you dirty old bunchman, you. You're clumping the pond where the humming I'm sending them off. Their future is dreary. They'll walk on their fins, weary, in search of some water that isn't so smeary." And then I got mad. I got terribly mad. I yelled at the Lorax, "Now listen here, Dad. All you do is yap yap and say bad, 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 bad. Well, I have my right, sir, and I'm telling you, I intend to go on doing just what I do. And for your information, you Lorax, I'm figuring and biggering and biggering and biggering, turning more truffula trees into fleas, which everyone needs. And at that very moment, we heard a loud whack. Outside in the fields came a sickening smack of an axe on a tree. Then we heard the tree fall. The very last truffula tree of them. No more trees, no more needs, no more work to be done. So in no time, my uncles and aunts, every one, all waved me goodbye. They jumped into my car, drove away under the smoke-smothered stars. Now all that was left beneath the bad-smelling sky was my big empty factory, the Lorax. The Lorax said nothing, just gave me a glance. Just gave me a very sad backward glance as he lifted himself by the seat of his pants. And I'll never forget the grim look on his face when he hoisted himself and took leave of this place through a hole in the smog without leaving a trace. And all that the Lorax left here in this mess was a small pile of rocks with the one word, unless. Whatever that meant, well, I just couldn't guess. That was long ago, but each day since that day, I've sat here and worried away through the years while my buildings have fallen apart. I've worried about it with all of my heart. But now, says the Onceler, now that you're here, the word of the Lorax seems perfectly clear. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So catch, calls the Onceler. He let something fall. It's a truffula seed. It's the last one of all. You're in charge of the last of the truffula seeds. Truffula trees are what everyone needs. Plant a new truffula. Treat it with care. Give it clean water and feed it fresh air. Grow a forest. Protect it from axes that Lorax and all of his friends may come.
All right, that was the Lorax. I hope you enjoyed that. Let's see if I can stop the share. Great. All right, a pretty heavy Dr. Seuss book. What we're going to start with for the Lorax is we're going to start with some cause and effect questions. So the cause is because this happened. The effect is this is the result. So the first question is, the boy gets to talk to the old Onceler. He has to pay something. do we remember what it is that he had to pay the
Lorax
Onceler
away.
to meet?
The old Onceler still lives here. Ask him. He knows. You won't see the Onceler. Don't knock at his door. He stays in his lurkin on top of his store. He lurks in his lurkin, cold under the roof, where he makes his own clothes out of myth-muffed moof. And on special dank midnights in August he peeks out of the shutters. Sometimes he speaks and tells how the Lorax was lifted away. He'll tell you, perhaps, if you're willing to pay. On the end of a rope, he lets down a tin pail, and you have to toss in 15 pence.
So 15 pence is a European type of currency. It's kind of like saying in the US like 15 cents. So you can say, in order for the boy to be able to talk to the old Onceler, he needed to pay, he paid. You can say 15 pence, you can say 15 cents. In the book, it specifically says 15 pence. He paid 15 pence, a nail, let's see what else.
And a nail, and the shell of a great-great-great-grandfather snail.
So he had to pay 15 pence, a nail, and a shell of a great old snail. Let's go ahead and stop that share screen again. Okay. So in order for the boy to get to talk to the Onceler, he had to pay 15 pence, a nail, and a shell of a great old snail. Next, we have a cause but not an effect. See if you can help me figure this one out. Because a chap buys the Onceler's first Thneed, what's the effect? The effect, this is probably the biggest turning point in this story, because once he realizes that there's a market for Thneeds, he invites his whole family up, doesn't he? He starts growing a factory for Thneeds. That's why all of the trees get chopped down. That's why the lake gets polluted. That's why there's so much smog in the air. So before all of those impacts on the environment happen, first he sells his first Thneed and realizes, hey, there's a market for this. And we're actually going to talk about economics here in a couple of weeks. We have a really cool end of the year project and a book when we're done with the Mighty Miss Malone that talks about economics. So I think you'll enjoy that. This is kind of a bit of an introduction to that in a way. But anyways, back to the question. Chap buys the Onceler's first Thneed. So the Onceler realizes, hey, I can sell these things. You know, there's a market for this. There's a desire for this. People want these. So if people want these, if people are going to pay money for these, I'm going to make more. I'm going to summarize that by saying the Onceler decides to make a Thneed factory or a business. He sold that one, he realized, hey, there's a market for this. So he made a whole factory dedicated to it. The last one gives us the effect but not the cause. So because something happened, the effect was the 4 truffle trees can be whacked with one smacker. So as the need, was there really need? As the want for more Thneeds became prevalent, the Onceler and his family realized, hey, we need to make more of these. We'll make more money if we make more faster. So they decide to build more equipment that will cause deforestation to happen faster. Remember when we talked about that? So the 4 truffle trees can be whacked with one smacker. What's the cause? the demand or the want for more needs grows. So the onceler's business grows. Needs to make more faster. Okay. Cause and effect. Just a quick little review of that. Another quick review. Let's just compare some characters. There aren't too many characters in this story that we get to learn a whole lot about. The most polar opposite characters are probably going to be who? The Lorax, who's adorable, by the way, and the onceler. Do we agree? How are they different? Wow, how are they not different, right? Beyond just how they physically look, and there are physical differences. For example, the Lorax is like orange and brown, the onceler's green. You never really see the onceler completely, just like his arms, whereas you see the Lorax's whole body. The Lorax really cares about nature and the creatures, but most of all, the trees. Do we agree? He's very caring. He's very sensitive, and not in a negative way necessarily, but just that he realizes things that maybe the onceler doesn't. What does the onceler care about? The onceler cares about money. He cares about getting rich. And what else? Growing his business, right? He constantly is talking about growing his business. Do we agree? I'm sure that you guys can come up with more differences on your own at home, but for sake of time, I'm going to move forward. Is there any way that they're alike? Think about it. I think that they're both very passionate and driven, maybe even ambitious. The Lorax is very adamant about keeping nature protected. But the onceler is also stubborn in that the onceler just is more concerned about making more money and growing his business. So I feel like I can say that they do have something similar about them. They are both passionate and driven. Driven means that once you put your mind to something, sometimes you can be a little stubborn about what you want to accomplish, and other people can't sway your mind. So I feel like they both are that way. I want to see what else you can come up with differently than what I came up with as ways that the Lorax and the onceler are similar and different. This is the biggest part of today, though. It's been a while since we've talked about different parts of a plot and using those to help summarize a story. So we're going to work on a story roller coaster today. Remember, the title is The Lorax. First thing that we need to figure out is who are the main characters, because this is where the roller coaster starts. Who are the main characters? Easy question. Definitely the Lorax. Definitely the onceler. If you write the boy who visits the Onceler, I can understand that because at the end it seems like he might have a pretty important role to play. I'm just going to include the Lorax and the Onceler though as main characters because those two are who the story is mainly about. Next, we need to figure out, whoa, what is the problem? What's the problem at the beginning of this story? Unfortunately, the problem is that the Onceler and his family cut down all the truffula trees. Or, you know, they're just impacting the environment in such a way. But the Lorax really cared about the trees specifically. My allergies are acting up today. Sorry that I keep itching my nose. Gonna make sure I use hand sanitizer after. That's the big problem, is that the Onceler is really impacting nature in this part of the world. Why is that a problem? It is impacting or negatively affecting the creatures that live there. They have to leave. Remember the crummy feeling in their tummies? Those creatures had to leave. The flying creatures had to leave because of all the smog. And then the fish had to leave because their home was getting caked full of gunk in their lake. Okay? How is the problem solved? Now, we don't really get to see how what the impact is of the solution, but at the very, very end of the story, the way that the Onceler is trying to make this all right, because he's obviously the one that caused all these problems, right? Is the Onceler gave the boy, and this is why I said I would understand if you said the boy's the main character. More so definitely in the movie than in the book. The Onceler gave the boy the last truffula seed to plant or to be planted. At the very, very end of the story, the Onceler is saying, hey, I realize now what the Lorax wanted me to do. When somebody who cares about the environment comes along, I need to give them the last truffula seed to be planted, and then maybe, if you've ever seen WALL-E or a movie like that, maybe by Disney, sometimes like life goes on. The plants start coming back. So I think that's the hope at the end of the story, is that even though all these mistakes were made and nature seems beyond repair, you know, it's possible for it all to come back eventually. But the last question here is, where does the story take place? Where does the story take place? Do you remember? The story begins on the streets of the lifted Lorax. Didn't really say like what the place is called, but that's kind of where the story starts and where it kind of like proceeds from there. You're kind of always seeing that spot where the Lorax is lifted at the end. So that's kind of the only information that they give us as far as a name of a place. You could say it takes place in a forest, it takes place outside. Any of those things are okay as long as it makes sense and you're able to defend your answer. So I'm going to say place where, because this is a place that they talked about multiple times in the story. The place where the Lorax was lifted. And of course, you got to include the title and the author, Dr. Seuss. Stella, it's okay. Come here. Come on. She sees somebody walking outside. She wants to say hello. Just don't want her whining to bother you guys. All right, so I'm including this notes sheet in the materials I'm sending you today. It's just kind of reminding you the difference between retelling a story and summarizing a story. We're going to try to focus on summarizing. Summarizing is a lot more difficult of a task. Retelling is simply just telling the story again, and you're using the author's words, and you're adding as many details as possible that you can remember. Whereas in summarizing, you're only including the very most important events from the story. You're putting the events in your own words, you're not using the author's words, and you're keeping in mind what the big idea of the story is. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up using our story roller coaster with the somebody wanted but so then to help us organize how we can summarize this story. Who was the somebody? The somebody was the very, very main character. You could do this from two different perspectives. You could either write the Lorax wanted but so then. You could write the Onceler wanted but so then. I'm going to do it from the perspective of the Onceler. If you would like at home, you could do it from the perspective of the Lorax. The Onceler is the main character. What did he want? He wanted a successful business and money. He liked that money. Doing what? He was selling Sneeds, that's right. Who was the somebody? The Onceler. What did he want? A successful business and money selling Sneeds. But what was the problem? Well, he ran out of the materials that he needed to make the Sneeds. The problem is that all the truffler trees got used up. They were all chopped down. There weren't any more. There were no more to make new Sneeds. That was the Onceler's problem. So, what happened? How the character tried to solve the problem? Didn't really know what to do, did he? So he stopped making Sneeds. There was nothing else for him to do. He shut his business down. I mean, his family members left. What else did he do? Well, he talked to the boy, didn't he? And through talking to the boy, he figured out what it was he needed to do to fix the problem. He talked to the boy about the Lorax. What happened at the very end of the story? How was the resolution to the problem, or how was the problem solved? We didn't really see it come to fruition, but the Onceler gave the last seed to the boy to plant and reflourish the truffle trees. So again, this part doesn't have to be complete sentences. This is just kind of where you're brainstorming or you're thinking about the important parts of the story so that you can then summarize it. So if I'm reading somebody wanted but so then in order, this is what we have. The Onceler wanted a successful business and money selling needs, but the problem was all the truffle trees got chopped down. There were no more to make needs. So he shut down his business. He talked to the boy about the Lorax. Then the Onceler gave the last seed to the boy so that he could plant and reflourish the truffle trees. Do you see how using these words and the ideas that we came up with together to summarize that 18-minute story into what? How many seconds did that take? Maybe 10, 15 to summarize the whole story from the Onceler's perspective. Now, you could also summarize the story from another character's perspective, the Lorax. Can't really do it from the boy's perspective because he's not in it a whole lot. So we can summarize it using those exact words that I just said. Who was it? The Onceler. What did he want? The Onceler wanted a successful business and money by selling needs. But all the truffle trees got chopped down. There were no more materials to make the sneeds. Okay, so his business shut down. He talked to the boy about the Lorax. What did the Onceler realize? The Onceler, and check it out, I ran out of space. What does that mean? I can either move down to the bottom or I can turn to the back and finish what I'm writing. The Onceler gave this the last seed, the last truffle seed to the boy. So that the trees could grow again. Okay. Summary of the Lorax. The Onceler wanted a successful business and money by selling needs, but all the truffle trees got chopped down. There were no more materials to make the needs, so his business shut down. He talked to the boy about the Lorax. The Onceler gave the last truffle seed to the boy so that the trees could grow again, so that the boy could plant the seed and the trees could grow, correct? So, got a couple of different resources for you. Cause and effect. It's always good to review. Compare a character. Okay. See if you can come up with some differences that are different than mine and some similarities that are different than mine. The story Rollercoaster. Okay, so organize your thoughts. Where does the story take place? Who is in the story? What's the problem? Why is it such a problem? How is it solved? Okay, that will help you when we're moving forward to summarizing. And it's important to check this out so that you're not retelling the whole story. You're not writing pages and pages worth, 17 minutes worth of the Lorax. You're only spending maybe a couple of minutes telling me what the most important parts of the story are. Use this graphic organizer to help you figure out who the somebody is, what they wanted, but something bad happened. So this is how we solved it. Then the story is resolved. The problem is at least attempting to be fixed. So the main reading skill that we're focusing on today is summarizing. However, I included the characterization and cause and effect because it has been a while since we've done cause and effect. And last week we did work, the week before last, we did work on comparing characters. That is something that's difficult in second grade to do. So I did want to offer you the opportunity to practice that again. Now, we did the Lorax together. If you want a real good challenge, I'm going to include in the description of this video a link to read Horton Hears a Who. Horton Hears a Who has a similar theme as the Lorax. If you completed this activity with Mrs. Keller, I want to challenge you to listen to the Horton Hears a Who story on your own and complete these activities with a new story. See if you can take what we've done together and apply that to another story. So I hope that you enjoyed the Lorax. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you feel like this gave you some more confidence in your ability to answer cause and effect questions, compare characters, and summarize important parts of a story, as well as recalling a plot of a story. And I hope that you're able to take this lesson and apply it to a new story. So I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Don't forget, it is Musical Wednesday. Mrs. Keller has to check out your choice board for specials to see what exactly we can do to check off that list today. So I will get right on that as soon as this gets uploaded. And again, I hope you have a great day. I miss you. Bye.